Hi, everybody. Welcome to day 2 of the masterclass on the anxious avoidant trap. I'm just going to wait, a couple minutes here or there for people to hop on. And remember that I'm giving away a free week intensive with me to those that, to a person that contributes the most. So if you're here, or comments the most, so if you're here, come on, say hi, drop a comment. And and I really found all the comments and all the questions so insightful and so useful. So yeah, welcome. Today we're going to be, hi Gwen. Today we're going to be talking about this place of okay, what to do? What are we going to be doing? How do we self-regulate our safety and work with our emotions in this place? Hi Mimi. Hi. Hi Michaela. So excited for day 2. Woohoo! And yesterday we had a little glitch. We moved through the electronic glitch and we're here. And I hope we don't have that glitch today. I've made some adjustments. So hi Eric, good morning from Seattle. Such a pleasure, Eric, to reconnect. Eric and I did some deep work in the jungle of Peru this summer together. So just to really quickly answer a couple of questions that came on yesterday. Question number 1, there was somebody who asked, well, can I be both? Can we be both? Absolutely. In fact, I don't think we're one or the other. A lot of us tend to fall into one or the other category. But based on the relationship and the dynamic of relationship, we can be anxious or avoidant. It's all basically safe or not safe. And both anxious or avoidant, they're not safe places to be. So absolutely we can be one or the other depending on the relationship and really depending on the dynamic. Good question. Excellent question. And the second question, more practical, is can somebody who's not on Facebook get access to these videos? Absolutely. Great question. I think that was Gwen. I'll also reply in writing. If somebody registered for this masterclass, which is free, they're going to get all the recordings next week after this class is finished. So absolutely, you'll have all the recordings in a newsletter that I send out to all the people who registered. So please, point them to the link. They'll register, and I'll be able to send them these recordings as well. So, is there any more questions from yesterday? You thought of something and you really wanted answered? I'd be happy to answer it. Just put it in the comments. And of course, if you're watching this on replay, post your comments and your questions with a hashtag replay, so I know that it's later on, because I do look at them and I do reply to them either in the next day or in writing in the comments as well. So, on Instagram little posts or wherever, big, long, PhD dissertations on the subject or whatever, there's a lot of fancy terminology and diagrams about self-regulation, co-regulation, codependent regulation. I mean, it gets really brainy, and that's not how I work. Because at the end of the day, it's our inner child that needs to hear this. Yeah, because it's our inner child who's falling into this place of trying to get their needs met and not being able to in relationship. So I try to keep it simple, I try to keep it simple. And what we're going to do today, I'm just going to talk a little about this inner child place and the feelings, that come into it and how to move in this place. So basically, the superhighways of how we get our needs met, our strategies. Remember yesterday we talked a little bit about the strategies with Jack and Jill? Those strategies are really locked and loaded in our brain before the age of 6. And, ironically or not ironically, this is the time in our lives when we don't really have access to a lot of memory. And everything builds up from this really early childhood place, So how to stay in a relationship, how to get our needs met, these strategies, they're really in there from a very young place. And so when we feel our feelings of when we're in this anxious avoidant trap and a lot of our feelings come up, they might feel very young to us, yeah? And so basically, little anecdote, I have a son, he's 7. He showed up at home one day and started talking to me about parts of the brain. And I was like, what? You're 7. How are you talking about like the amygdala or the prefrontal cortex? But he has a mindfulness class in his school, which is amazing. And they taught these brain parts incredibly that I want to share with you. So we're going to talk about 2 parts of the brain, okay? And very general, One is the amygdala, and as my son Felix, as he's been taught, he calls it the security guard. The amygdala is the security guard. In, other circles, it can also be called the reptilian part of our brain. This is the one that regulates our safety. And then there's the frontal cortex part. This is just this chunk of brain that humans have, a huge one. And it's the Yoda part of our brain. And so that has to do with wisdom, yeah? And, this place of wisdom, it's also regulating our empathy, our emotions, this kind of higher self-wisdom, internal wisdom, connection, problem solving, yeah? Communication. All of these things happen here in the frontal part of our brain. The amygdala it's like this little bit inside, and it has to do with survival, absolute survival, the security guard. And it is what, regulates this place that is often called the fight or flight mechanism. Yeah. So amygdala, fight or flight, frontal cortex or prefrontal cortex, different lobes, different everything. But here is basically communication, empathy, problem solving, connection. When we're in our amygdala, we don't have access to this front part of our brain, right? Yeah. So by the age of 6, our amygdala is like locked and loaded with what is safe and what is not safe, how to do life, how to do relationships, how to stay in connection in a way that keeps us, that doesn't feel unsafe, right? And a lot of times that involves not feeling certain things, yeah? And instead reacting in this fight or flight mechanism. Now, some people call it fight, flight, or freeze. Some people call it fight, flight, freeze, fawn. I mean, the F's of this stuff, you can just find all your F words for the fuck, I don't know. But really, we live in a dualistic world. It's really fight or flight. Freeze, in the way that I do it, freeze goes into flight because we're not moving towards. We're either moving towards or moving away, right? So yesterday we talked a little bit about this Jack and Jill analogy, about how Jill, has a way of when Jack is pulling away, Jill doesn't feel safe. And so Jill's strategy for feeling safe is anxious response, grasping, more, give me, all that. And that can be people pleasing. That can also be lashing out, yeah? But this energy of more, give. I need more, not enough, yeah? And for Jack, if Jill is doing this place of not enough, give me more, that doesn't feel safe to Jack, based on really early childhood stuff. And so his mechanism in the amygdala is the flight mechanism, the withdrawal. That's how he tries to keep himself safe. Now, I just want to say that I've put a gender thing on this, and that's not to say that, people identifying as women are anxious and people identifying as men are avoidant. In fact, we have both sides of us in ourselves. But because of our society and because of the way that gender has been conditioned into us, A lot of times it can be gendered, but it doesn't have to be at all. And in fact, we switch roles quite a lot based on the relationship. So what do Jack and Jill have in common? And is this clear, or is there any like confusions? I know a lot of people are watching, so woohoo live. So this is a really good time. Like if you have any questions, put them in the comments, and I'll answer them. So everybody's getting this? Yeah, Michaela's writing, I see myself switching from one role to another, and I don't always recognize myself in those reactions. It feels scary and vulnerable. Thank you. Like, absolutely. So when we are not feeling safe, yes, Mimi says, Tran, when we're not feeling safe, we're in the amygdala. It's like, I'm not feeling safe. I'm not feeling safe. Bam, into this part of the brain, and all of our empathy, all of our communication, all of our higher wisdom, all of our ability to problem solve and stay in our bodies is gone. Like, we don't have access to it actually anymore. So it's absolutely true that it's like, I don't always recognize myself. Yeah, because this part is not available. We're in survival mode. And so very true. You know, a lot of times, like, I remember when I was younger, something would trigger me and I would like lash out and say these things and kind of go crazy. And then when I was able to calm myself down later, or after I had calmed down, I was like, what was I thinking? Like, why did I do this? Like, I could have solved it in such a more rational way, but I didn't have access to it. And it's like, I didn't have access to it. We don't have access to these higher wisdom places when we're triggered and not feeling safe. Yeah. So it's like yesterday, we talked about how this anxious avoidant trap ends up being where two people end up being each other's worst nightmare, and it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy of the strategies and the stories. Our stories get self-fulfilled because we are each other's strategies, if that makes sense. So both Jack and Jill are not feeling safe, and that is why they're employing their fight or flight mechanisms and not having access to this higher self-wisdom. And so if we stay in this place where we're not feeling safe, we're just doing this. We're like two wounded animals trying to stay safe. And at the end, it gets worse and worse and worse and creates so much distance and so much disconnection until, either we keep being in pain, and some of us have a really high threshold for pain, or the relationship ends. Yeah. So it's quite a pickle, it's a total pickle. Like, we want to be connected, we want to feel loved, we want to feel seen, and we don't want to give ourselves away. So this place between sovereignty and synergy, this balance, right? And one person feels really threatened in the sovereignty, and one person feels really threatened in the synergy. So both Jack and Jill are not feeling safe. Both want the other person to change first so that they can feel better. Just give me some space and then I'll come to you. I'll want to be in connection, or just meet my needs, just love me, just give me a hug, just see me, and then I'll be able to give you space. I'll feel safe enough to give you space. Sound familiar? Yeah. Gwen says, I'm so used to being Jill and now I'm the Jack and it's confusing. Yeah. But both, absolutely. And it's really good wisdom to see how both play out. But both Jack and Jill are in a control pattern, and they're both not feeling safe. And the underlying root of this not feeling safe is that the feelings that are coming up are too difficult to tolerate. We don't want to feel these places. We don't want to feel the fear of being in connection, being vulnerable. Because when we were vulnerable before, we really got our heart broken, and it's so scary. We don't want to feel in this connection and be vulnerable and open ourselves up, because the last time that happened, this person just took over and was so overwhelming, and I lost myself in the relationship completely. And it's so scary. It's so scary. So this is the codependent trap. Yeah, we want the other person to change so that we feel better and we don't have to feel the feelings that are coming up. Yeah. Aubrey, hi Aubrey, so lovely to meet you here. Aubrey says, I think now when I start to feel like the Jill tendencies inside, I ended early to avoid feeling that way about myself. Aubrey, you are definitely on track. Yeah, losing myself in a relationship was frightening, Mimi. Absolutely. So it's like, what is the situation bringing up inside of us that we don't want to feel? You know, what feelings are coming up that is so scary to tolerate? And if we learn how to tolerate these feelings, which feel so unsafe to do, we can actually learn a lot. You know, there's a lot of inner wisdom. And this inner wisdom can tell us, is this familiar place or not familiar place? Familiar, yeah. And is this place, does it feel like this age, the age that you're now, or does it feel so familiar that it's young? Like how old do you feel in this place? And this question of how old do you feel in this place can give a lot of insight, yeah? So if we're feeling young, and it's the inner child that's in charge, and it is the inner child that's in charge if we're in the amygdala, because those superhighways were locked and loaded before the age of 6. So as long as the little child is in charge, we're in the same strategy, and our needs are not going to be able to be fully met because it's so scary to show up in this way, because when we were young, it didn't work for us. It didn't work for us. We got really hurt. Yeah. So it's a danger zone. Our amygdala, the security guard, as Felix, my son, says, goes ding, 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 danger, danger, danger. Leave the body, you know, go back into the past, you know, and act based on what happened in the past. You know? It's a very wise mechanism, you know, for caveman times. It kept us alive. It kept us, you know, running away from the saber-toothed tiger instead of running closer to the saber-toothed tiger. A lot of wisdom in the amygdala. We wouldn't be alive without it. But in terms of this place of wanting to be in connection and in connection with ourselves and feel sovereign in relationship, you know, it can sometimes be sabotaging. So it's really this place of how do I feel safe? How do I feel safe to feel my feelings? Yeah. So, you know, doing this kind of nilly-willy and like seeing if it works the next time, it feels really unsafe. So I work with clients a lot, and we go into these places that feel unsafe, but we do it in a safe container. We do it together and in the safe container of my one-on-one therapy-based coaching. And a lot of times, you know, I have people, I invite people to tap into their anger, or tap into their fear, or tap into you know, the sadness, or even the joy. The joy is really hard to tolerate for a lot of us. Pleasure is so hard to tolerate for so many of us. And it feels so unsafe to go there. And like alone, it feels too unsafe to do. Way too unsafe to do. So, you know, if I ask somebody and then I invite somebody to beat a pillow and, you know, just say the word no alone, it's going to feel fundamentally different than if we do it together. Because together, it feels safer because I'm holding the space, I'm holding that energy. And alone, you tap into that place and it can feel just completely out of body. It's easy to leave the body. So the way that we work, it's like a deep operation. We go into these really unsafe places in a safe container, and we learn about them. We bring them into the light. We understand what's going on. We understand, is it, you know, like if you're the Jill, is it about what Jack is doing? Is it about the fact that Jack didn't take out the garbage, or Jack is whatever, withdrawing, not replying to my messages, needing space, you know, whatever the story? Or is it about this deep energy current inside of me that feels unloved and abandoned? And is it like a really young childhood place that I don't want to go to? It's too scary to feel. Because if I allowed myself to go there when I was a baby, when I was little, it might mean death. This place of disconnection might have meant death, you know? When it says, emotions witnessed in a safe container is really healing. Bless you. Yeah. Being witnessed is really healing. Being witnessed for who we are underneath the mask is really healing. So, you know, with my clients, the mask has a purpose. You know, we start off with the mask. We work with the mask. The mask is a place from which to start the important work. But once we can penetrate the mask and go deeper into these places that sometimes feel dark, sometimes are unloved, sometimes are really, really scary, and being witnessed in them and feeling that it's safe to go there, you know, that's the healing. That's the beautiful journey. And so the journey is making the unconscious conscious. That's like the big thing. And honestly, it's in life. Like life is making the unconscious conscious, bringing light into the shadow, expanding our consciousness, expanding our container for energy, expanding our container for pleasure. But when we make the unconscious conscious, it no longer rules us because we understand it. And we can say, my inner child feels really unsafe. My nervous system is so triggered right now. It has nothing to do with this thing. The other person is on their own journey. It's not, you know, certainly something happened. You know, Jack didn't take out the garbage. But is it really about the garbage, or is it really about like the repressed anger that I have of not being seen? Is it really about the fear of opening myself and being vulnerable to getting my heart broken? Yeah. So that's kind of the journey of making the unsafe places safe by going into them in the somatic container. And you know, the way that we go into it is through the body. We access the emotional body through the physical body, because our emotions they live in the body. And this is why a lot of times people don't really feel too satisfied in just like a talking container, because we can like talk, but then nothing happens. Like the release isn't there, the access isn't there, because we're in story. Whenever we're like here, we're in story. Yeah. And sometimes we need sessions that we just need to have, you know, witness and talk. But sometimes we have sessions where we really access these places. And sometimes after sessions where we really go deep in accessing a lot of this stuff, you know, the next session might be more of a processing session and just a talking session. And, you know, that's kind of the journey. And of course, going into unsafe places is really scary. So a lot of people have like hang-ups, you know, the biggest hang-ups that I get, you know, it's like, oh, I can't do this because of money issues, or time issues, or other inner child issues. And all of these, you know, if it feels in alignment, you know, it doesn't always feel in alignment. We have to feel like it's a yes. And if it is an internal yes, if it's like, oh, this would really benefit me, like I can feel that I want this, then if there's a but, it's like the but is always this place of, not always, but often this place of, you're taking away from me. There will be less from me. If I sign up for this 3-month container, and it's a 3-month container because it's a journey into these deep places. And we can't journey into this deep place in like a once-off or a 2-off thing, or like see how it goes. You commit to the operation, you know, you don't go on the operating table and the doctor starts like opening you up and you're like, no, it hurts too much. I'm done. I'm good. I'm really good. You know, you commit to the surgery, you come out of the surgery. And so if there is alignment, and it's really important that there is, because like I said yesterday, 80% of the work gets done in the client-practitioner relationship, because of the transference that happens, because like Gwen said, the witnessing of these really unsafe places. You have to trust. It's a relationship built on trust. You know, we learn in this relationship of the client practitioner, it's like a petri dish of how to do relationship, how to do trust, how to build trust, and how to open our hearts to somebody else. Even though a lot of stuff, unsafe stuff comes alive, you know, so that's why this commitment. So if the alignment is there, a lot of times there can be like these hang-ups, these like excuses. They're fear-based, and they're always couched in the inner child wound. It may seem like totally, you know, I don't have the time. I don't have the time. I'm super, super busy. You know, I can be, I spoke to a really successful lawyer who really wanted to explore these places, but the issue of time came up, you know. For a lot of people, it's the issue of money. I spoke to somebody last week who felt really super aligned, but when the issue of the 3-month container came up, like, no, that's not for me, because you're taking away. There's all these reasons. So it's this place of, if I give you, there will be less for me, less money, less time, you know, less sovereignty. It's all sovereignty, you know, the time, the money, it's our stuff, and I don't want to give it to you. And if we can break through that, if there is alignment, if we can break through that, automatically it upgrades, because automatically we have a breakthrough through these places, you know. And I've really seen it with clients, this ability to really go deep when they break through this place of, I'm giving to you and I'm taking away from me. Yeah. So all of these reasons, they're also rooted in inner child fears. But once we break through it, it becomes really apparent that if I invest in myself, if I do this work, then there will be so much more for me. You know, there's so much more for me. And, you know, this distrust of authority figures, this distrust of all the stuff, all the way that we do relationships comes up. So does anybody have any questions, or does anything come up? You know, we're going to wrap up. I don't want to keep you guys too much on your lunch hour. But if there's anything that comes up, please type it into the comments. And if you're watching this on replay and comments and questions come up, please type it into the comments and, you know, with a hashtag replay. And if you are feeling an internal yes, and you're like, I need this in my life. I'm really tired of the anxious avoidant trap. You know, sign up for a clarity call. And we can really zero in on your specific, you know, pain points in relationships and how to work through them in the container. Tran Mimi said, could you expand on the self-fulfilling prophecy? Absolutely. So we talked a little bit about this yesterday, actually quite a lot. The whole thing was about yesterday. So if you haven't watched yesterday, please take the time. It'll really get into the nitty-gritty. But basically, this self-fulfilling prophecy is that when we're both feeling unsafe, so let's take the Jack and Jill example. Jack has this place of too much. You know, Jack may have inner child wounding around overbearing caregivers. Yeah. He says, I'll catch up on part 2, but I'll just say it quickly. It's always good to remind. You know, there might be this place of, to be in a relationship for Jack, I have to give myself away. I have to lose myself. And their strategy is withdrawal. So I have to back off to not lose myself. And the partner, Jill's story may be, I have to give and give and give and give for somebody to love me. Yeah. And so Jill's strategy is the anxious one. I'm going to give more and more and more, and I'm going to need more and more and more. So Jill is in this place of not enough, and Jack is in this place of too much. Both are energy currents. If you think about them as energy currents, you'll be able to feel them in your body, and it'll make sense to you in the way that it makes sense to you in your own life, and not the way that I that I say it, because the way that I say it, it's like it could land perfectly, or you might have an experience where my words are not the words that you use. So try to feel it as an energy current in your body. This place of too much, more space, or not enough, give, you know? And so when there's one person in the energy field of not enough, and they want more and more and more from the person, because their story is, they always leave, you know, I have to give myself, like I have to give and give. And the other person is, oh, I need to back off. The more anxious Jill becomes, the more backing off, withdrawal that Jack does. And the more withdrawing that Jack does, the more anxious grasping that Jill does, right? And so more grasping, more withdrawal, more grasping with withdrawal. What happens? Space gets created. And we become each other's worst nightmares. Jill, for Jack, Jill becomes the overbearing partner. You know, we can go deep into the inner child stuff and see what's really there. But, you know, in story, Jill becomes the overbearing partner who always wants more and more and more. And I really can't take it. I just need some more space. And for Jill, Jack becomes this person who's never showing up for her, never present, never able to like be there. Is always unavailable. Yeah. And so it's the self-fulfilling prophecy, if that makes sense. We become each other's worst nightmares. We trigger all these places in ourselves to and we want the other person to change for us to feel better. Yeah, that's the thing. So another kind of good kind of tip to know if you're in story or if in the present, if the words like superlatives come up of never, always, like these words, he never, she never, he always, she always, they, it has no difference. We know we're in story because that's what we're seeing in them. That's the story that we're seeing in them. So that's it for the part on regulating and safety. Please, if this is really resonating with you and this is how you've been doing, this is how relationships have been showing up in your life, and you're done, like you don't want this, you want intimacy, you want connection, you want to build relationship on the foundation of trust and being able to feel safe being seen and seeing the other and getting your needs met, you know, like really getting your needs met in a relationship, feeling loved, and you feel like you want to take this journey, sign up for a free clarity call with me. It's about 30 minutes. We're going to go into your pain points, your specific pain points, your specific story in relationship. I'll give you some feedback about how I would work with you and describe to you the details and the logistics of my container, and we can go from there. Our lives are our most precious gifts, you know. So we are worth everything. You are worth everything. You really are. And you deserve to get your needs met, your love, your investment, you're being seen. You're absolutely worth it in case you need a reminder for that today. You're absolutely worth it, and you're absolutely worth yourself, your higher self, your love. All right, all my best, and blessings, everybody. Gratitude.